My name is Dr. Nora Whitman. I'm 42 years old, and for the last 8 years, I've been what most people would call a stay-at-home mom. At my husband's corporate awards dinner, his mistress looked at me across the table, laughed, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "She's just the housewife." The table went quiet, uncomfortable. My husband Marcus didn't defend me. He looked down at his plate and said nothing. I sat there in a dress I'd bought specifically for this event, holding a glass of wine, feeling 40 pairs of eyes on me waiting to see if I'd react. I didn't. I smiled politely and took a sip. Then the CEO of the company, David Chen, a man Marcus had been trying to impress for 3 years, leaned across the table, looked directly at me and said quietly, "You're Dr. Whitman, right? The one who owns the patent for the polymer coating?" The entire table froze. Marcus's face went white. His mistress stopped smiling. Because what none of them knew, what I'd kept secret for 3 years while my husband dismissed me as just a housewife, was that the technology his company had just won an industry award for, the innovation Marcus was being honored for tonight, was built on my patent. A patent I'd filed alone in my garage. A patent I'd licensed to his company. A patent worth $14 million. And Marcus had no idea. Before I go any further, if this story means something to you, please take a moment to like and subscribe. And drop your location in the comments. I want to know where you're listening from right now. Let me take you back 17 years to a graduate laboratory at Stanford University, where I met the man I thought I'd spend my life building something with. Marcus Whitman and I met in 2005 in Stanford's bioengineering graduate program. I was 23, working on my PhD in biocompatible materials. Marcus was 25 in the same program, studying medical device design. We were assigned to the same research group. We shared late nights in the lab, frustrations over failed experiments, coffee at 2 a.m. while we waited for test results. That's how it started. Marcus was charming, ambitious. He talked about changing the world, about building technologies that would save lives. I believed him. I believed in him. More than that, I believed in us. We got married in June 2009. Small ceremony in Napa Valley, just family and close friends. We both graduated that same year. I had my PhD, 14 published papers, job offers from 3 major biotech firms. I chose MedTech Innovations in South San Francisco as a senior research scientist, $95,000 a year. I was 27 years old and I was exactly where I wanted to be. Marcus took a job at TechMed Solutions in San Jose. Product manager, $140,000 a year. He was good at managing people, at presentations, at making things happen. I was good at the science. We were a team, or so I thought. For the first 7 years of our marriage, we both worked long hours, competing deadlines. We talked about having kids someday, but we were focused on our careers. Then we started trying. Month after month, nothing. Tests, specialists, treatments, 2 years of trying. It didn't happen. In 2016, we decided to adopt. We were approved for a sibling group, twin girls, Emma and Lily, 4 years old, in foster care in Sacramento. We brought them home in September 2016. Beautiful, scared, needing stability and love and 2 parents who could actually be present. That's when the conversation started. We were sitting at the kitchen table one Sunday morning, the girls playing in the next room. Marcus said, "We need to talk about logistics." "Daycare?" I asked. "It's $4,000 a month for both of them. Even with our salaries, that's half our take-home after taxes." "We can afford it," I said. "Barely. And we're both working 60-hour weeks. We're never home. They need stability, Nora. One of us should be here." I looked at him. "Are you saying one of us should quit?" "I'm saying we should consider it." "You want me to quit?" He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm up for a promotion. Senior director. It's a critical time for my career. And realistically, Nora, I make more than you do. Financially, it makes sense. I make $95,000 a year, Marcus. That's not nothing. I make $140,000, that's $45,000 more. If one of us steps back, it should be the one who earns less. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say that my research mattered, that I was on the verge of a breakthrough in my polymer coating project, that my career was just as important as his. But I looked at the girls in the other room and I thought about them being shuffled between daycare and after-school programs and babysitters, and I thought, maybe just for a few years. Just until they start school, I said. Kindergarten. 3 years. Of course, Marcus agreed. Just a few years. I gave my notice at MedTech Innovations in October 2016. My last day was November 15th. My colleagues threw me a going-away party. My boss, a woman named Dr. Patel, pulled me aside and said, "You're one of the best researchers I've ever worked with. Don't lose that part of yourself." I promised I wouldn't. I lost it anyway, slowly, not all at once, just piece by piece over the next 5 years. The first year I told myself I was adjusting, learning to be a mom. The girls needed me. They were healing from trauma. I was doing important work. The second year, I mentioned going back to work part-time. Marcus said, "The girls still need you. Maybe next year." The third year, Marcus got his promotion. Senior Director of Product Development. $220,000 a year. We bought a bigger house in Palo Alto. 4 bedrooms, a yard, good schools. I was happy for him, proud even. But at dinner parties, I started noticing something. People would ask Marcus about his work, his projects, his career. They'd ask me, "So, how do you keep busy?" Keep busy. Like I was filling time instead of raising 2 children. Marcus started introducing me as my wife, Nora, not Dr. Pfaff. Whitman, not my wife, who has a PhD from Stanford. Just my wife. I mentioned it once. "You used to introduce me as Dr. Whitman." He looked confused. "That was when you were working. It seems weird to use your title now." "I still have a PhD, Marcus. I didn't lose my degree when I became a mom." "I know. I just thought, never mind." "You're right. I'll make sure to mention it." He never did. By year 5, I'd stopped expecting him to. I'd stopped expecting a lot of things. Marcus worked late more and more. He traveled for conferences. He was networking, building his reputation, climbing the ladder. I was home with the girls. Homework, soccer practice, piano lessons, cooking, cleaning, the endless invisible labor that no one notices until it stops getting done. I didn't resent it. Not exactly. I loved Emma and Lily. But somewhere in the endless cycle of school drop-offs and grocery runs and parent-teacher conferences, I forgot who I used to be. Dr. Nora Whitman, published researcher expert in biocompatible polymers, the woman who'd once presented her findings at an international conference in front of 500 people, was gone. I was just Marcus's wife, just the girl's mom, just the housewife. And then one night in January 2021, I found my research notebooks in a box in the garage. The girls were asleep. Marcus was traveling. I was cleaning out the garage looking for the girls' old baby clothes to donate. I found a box labeled Nora Grad School. I opened it. Inside were my notebooks, years of research, my PhD thesis, my published papers. I sat on the concrete floor of the garage and opened one of the notebooks. My handwriting. Equations. Diagrams. Notes on polymer surface modifications for medical implants. I remembered this work. I remembered the problem I'd been trying to solve: how to create a coating for medical devices that was biocompatible, antimicrobial, and prevented the body from rejecting implants. I'd been close to a breakthrough when I left academia. So close. I opened my laptop right there on the garage floor. Started searching recent research. What had happened in the field since I left? What new materials were available? What problems were still unsolved? 3 hours later, I realized something. The approach I'd been working on in 2009, the one I'd abandoned when I graduated and started my job, could work now. With new materials available, new manufacturing techniques, the chemistry I'd mapped out 15 years ago was suddenly viable. I didn't sleep that night. I read papers until 4 a.m., took notes, started sketching out a plan. The next morning, I made breakfast for the girls, drove them to school, and came home to an empty house. I went back to the garage, looked at the space. A workbench, storage shelves, Marcus's old golf clubs in the corner gathering dust. I could do this. I could set up a small lab here, nothing fancy, just enough to test my hypothesis. I started small, ordered basic equipment online, a hot plate, glassware, chemical reagents, charged it to our household account in amounts Marcus wouldn't notice, $50 here, $80 there. I converted half the garage into a workspace. The girls were in school from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Marcus worked until 7 or 8 most nights. I had time. I had space. I had a problem I couldn't stop thinking about. I didn't tell Marcus, at first, because I wasn't sure it would work. Later, because I realized he wouldn't take it seriously. He'd say something like, "That's nice, honey, a little hobby project." And I'd lose the one thing that was making me feel like myself again. For 18 months, I worked, methodically, carefully. I tested polymer formulations, adjusted ratios, documented everything in lab notebooks the way I'd been trained to do 15 years earlier. The girls would come home from school. I'd help with homework, make dinner, do bedtime. Then I'd go back to work late at night, midnight to 2 a.m., sometimes later. Marcus never noticed. He was asleep by 11. In March 2023, I succeeded. I created a polymer coating that was biocompatible, antimicrobial, and demonstrably prevented tissue rejection in the test models I could run in my setup. It worked. It actually worked. I sat alone at 1:30 in the morning looking at my test results, and I cried, not because I was sad, because I'd forgotten what it felt like to solve a problem that mattered, to use my brain for something more than figuring out carpool schedules. I documented everything, every step, every test result, every formulation. I knew what I had. This wasn't just a hobby project. This was real. This was valuable. I needed a patent attorney. I found one online. Lillian Cross, independent lawyer, specialized in intellectual property for STEM inventors. Her office was in San Francisco. I made an appointment. I met her on a Tuesday morning in April 2023 after I dropped the girls at school. I brought all my documentation, notebooks, test results, chemical formulations. Lillian reviewed everything for 2 hours. Then she looked at me and said, "Dr. Whitman, this is patent-worthy, highly patent-worthy. Medical device companies will want this technology." "How much does it cost to file a patent?" I asked. "For something this complex with international filing, around $15,000. I had $17,000 in a savings account Marcus didn't know about. Money I'd saved before we got married, an old account I'd never closed. I'd been adding small amounts over the years. Birthday checks from my parents, money from selling old textbooks. It was my emergency fund. This felt like an emergency of identity. "Let's do it," I said. Lillian filed the patent application in June 2023. We listed me as the inventor under my maiden name, Dr. Nora Chen Whitman. The patent was titled Novel Biocompatible Polymer Coating for Medical Device Applications. I didn't tell Marcus. I didn't tell anyone except Lillian. Why? Because I needed something that was mine, something he couldn't diminish, something that existed outside of being Marcus Whitman's wife or Emma and Lily's mom. I needed to be Dr. Nora Whitman again, even if only on a patent application. The patent was approved in January 2024. Lillian had filed it under expedited examination for medical device innovations, which cut the normal timeline in half. Official United States patent granted. Lillian called me the day the approval came through. "Congratulations, Dr. Whitman. You're a patent holder." "What do I do now?" I asked. "You license it. Medical device manufacturers will pay substantial royalties for this technology. I can help you negotiate contracts. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. A San Jose area code. I answered. Dr. Whitman, this is David Chen. I'm the CEO of TechMed Solutions. My heart stopped. TechMed Solutions. Marcus's company. I've been following patent filings in our industry. David continued. Your polymer coating application caught my attention. We've been trying to solve this exact problem for 5 years. I'd like to meet with you to discuss a potential licensing agreement. You know I'm married to Marcus Whitman, I said. I do. I saw your name and made the connection. Does Marcus know about your patent? No. There was a pause. May I ask why not? Because I wanted to do this on my own merit, not as Marcus Whitman's wife. I respect that, David said, and I'd still like to meet. We met at a coffee shop in Menlo Park the following week. David came alone, no lawyers, just him and a notepad. Dr. Whitman, he said, your coding solves a critical problem in implantable medical devices. Rejection rates, infection rates. Our R&D team has been working on this for half a decade with minimal progress. Your formulation is elegant. It's exactly what we need. What are you proposing? I asked. An exclusive licensing agreement. We'd like to integrate your technology into our cardiac stent line and potentially our orthopedic implant products. We're prepared to offer $2 million upfront, plus an 8% royalty on all products utilizing your patent. I kept my face neutral, but my heart was pounding. What's the projected revenue on those product lines? Conservatively, we estimate $12 to $15 million in royalties over the next 10 years. $14 million total. I created something worth $14 million in my garage while my husband thought I was just keeping busy. I need to consult with my attorney, I said. Of course. Take your time. I met with Lillian that afternoon. She reviewed TechMed's offer. This is a very strong offer, Nora. I'd advise you to accept it. What about Marcus? He works there. Will this create a conflict? Not legally. You're licensing your independently created intellectual property to a company. The fact that your husband is an employee is irrelevant. You're not required to disclose this to him. But should I? Lillian looked at me. That's not a legal question. That's a personal one. I signed the contract on March 8, 2024. $2 million was deposited into a new bank account I opened in my name only. I didn't tell Marcus. I told myself I'd tell him eventually, when the time was right. But part of me was waiting, watching, testing a theory I didn't want to be true. Because in September 2023, 6 months before I signed that contract, Marcus had started coming home later, showering immediately when he walked in, keeping his phone face down on the table, buying new cologne. I noticed. I said nothing. Then in December 2023, Marcus left his iPad at home one morning. We'd always shared an Apple ID for family purchases. Marcus had never been tech-savvy enough to set up separate accounts. He forgot which device was logged into what. A notification popped up while I was making breakfast. iMessage from C. Can't wait to see you tonight. I opened the messages. I read everything. Her name was Chloe Rains, 29 years old. Junior marketing executive at TechMed Solutions. They'd been seeing each other since September. The messages were exactly what you'd expect. Your wife doesn't understand you. When are you going to tell her? I can't keep being a secret. And photos I didn't need to see. I closed the iPad, made lunch for the girls, drove them to school, came home, sat at the kitchen table and stared at the wall. I could confront him. I could scream. I could throw him out. Or I could wait. I chose to wait. I had a patent application pending. I had work to do. I had leverage building that he didn't know existed. So I watched my husband have an affair for 8 months. I watched him lie. I watched him come home and kiss me on the cheek and ask how my day was. And I kept working. When my patent was approved in January, I didn't tell him. When David Chen offered me $2 million in March, I didn't tell him. When TechMed launched their new cardiac stent product in April using my polymer coating technology, I didn't tell him. When Marcus came home in late April and said, "I have some exciting news. I'm being nominated for an industry award. Product Innovation of the Year. For the new stent line," I smiled and said, "That's wonderful, Marcus. I'm so proud of you." I didn't tell him that the technology he was being honored for was mine. The awards dinner was scheduled for May 18th, 2024. Black tie gala at the Grand Hyatt San Francisco. Marcus asked me to come. "Of course I'll come," I said. "Great. It's a big deal. Important people will be there. Just, keep the conversation light. People don't really want to hear about science stuff at these things." "You mean the science I have a PhD in?" He laughed. "I know, but that was a long time ago. Just talk about the girls or something. That's what people relate to." I nodded. "Sure, Marcus." A week before the dinner, I received the seating chart by email. Table 1. Head table: Marcus Whitman, Nora Whitman, David Chen, CEO, Senior VPs, Department Heads, and Chloe Rains, Marketing. She'd arranged to be seated at our table. At the head table, with me and my husband and the CEO. Bold move. I didn't say anything to Marcus. I just noted it. May 18th, 2024. I bought a new dress for the occasion. Black cocktail dress. Elegant. Simple. I did my hair, my makeup. I looked good. Marcus barely glanced at me when I came downstairs. "You look nice." Not beautiful. Not stunning. Nice. We drove separately. He came from the office. I drove from home after getting the girls settled with a babysitter. The Grand Hyatt ballroom was full. 200 people, pharmaceutical executives, medical device engineers, investors, industry press. I walked in alone, found the table. Marcus was already there talking to a colleague. He introduced me to a VP I'd never met. "This is my wife, Nora." Not Dr. Whitman. Just Nora. The VP shook my hand. "Nice to meet you. What do you do?" Before I could answer, a voice behind me said, "She's just the housewife." I turned. Chloe Rains, 29 years old, tight red dress, standing there with a glass of champagne and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Chloe," Marcus said, his voice tight. "What?" Chloe said. I'm just answering his question. The VP looked uncomfortable. Other people at the table had stopped talking, watching. I looked at Marcus, waiting for him to say something. Anything. He looked down at his plate. Silence. I sat down, picked up my water glass, took a sip, smiled at Chloe. "I take care of our twin daughters. They're 12. Emma and Lily." "How nice," Chloe said, sitting down across from me. "Must be so simple compared to what Marcus does." I nodded. "Much simpler. I only have to keep 2 children alive. Marcus has to attend meetings." A couple of people at the table smothered laughs. Chloe's smile tightened. David Chen, the CEO, sat down at the head of the table. He glanced around, taking in the tension. His eyes landed on me. "Nora," he said. "I'm sorry. I should have asked earlier. It's Dr. Whitman, correct?" I looked at him. "Yes. ET in bioengineering from Stanford, if I'm not mistaken?" "That's right." Marcus looked confused. Why was the CEO asking me this? David leaned forward slightly. "You're the one who owns the patent for the polymer coating, aren't you? The biocompatible antimicrobial formulation we licensed in March?" The entire table went silent. Every conversation stopped. 10 people, all staring. Marcus's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Chloe's smile vanished. I met David's eyes. "Yes, that's my patent." David's eyes. "Yes, that's my patent." David nodded. "I thought so." Marcus, "Did you know your wife invented the core technology for the product you're being honored for tonight?" Marcus turned to look at me. His face had gone completely white. "What?" "The polymer coating." David said. The technology that makes the new stent line possible. It's Dr. Whitman's patent. We licensed it from her in March. Marcus stared at me. You, what? I developed it over the last 2 years, I said calmly. Filed the patent in June of last year. Your company licensed it 3 months ago. Why didn't you tell me? His voice was barely a whisper. I took a sip of wine. Set the glass down. You never asked what I did with my time. You assumed I was just keeping busy. Chloe, trying to recover, said, but Marcus managed the product development team. David cut her off, his voice polite but firm. The product team integrated Dr. Whitman's technology into the device. But the innovation, the patented technology that makes it work, is entirely hers. The VP who'd asked what I did earlier cleared his throat. That's impressive, Dr. Whitman. Another executive, a woman I'd never met, leaned forward. I read about your patent filing in the industry journal. Brilliant work. Marcus sat frozen. Chloe had gone pale, staring at her plate. The rest of the table slowly resumed eating, but the dynamic had shifted. I wasn't just Marcus's wife anymore. I was the person who'd made this entire evening possible. David looked at me. In fact, Dr. Whitman, I've been meaning to ask if you'd consider consulting with our R&D division on future applications. We have several other product lines that could benefit from your expertise. I'd be happy to discuss that, I said. Marcus was still staring at me. He looked like he'd been hit by a truck. The rest of the dinner was excruciating. For him. For Chloe. For anyone who'd heard what she called me. People kept glancing at our table. Whispering. By the time dessert was served, half the room knew. The CEO's wife is the inventor. The guy getting the award didn't even know. When Marcus's name was called for the award, he went on stage, accepted the glass trophy, gave a speech thanking his team, his leadership, the company's vision. He didn't mention me, because he didn't know what to say. When he came back to the table, Chloe was gone. She'd left. Couldn't handle the embarrassment. I stayed until the end, smiled, shook hands, accepted compliments from people who suddenly knew exactly who I was. Dr. Nora Whitman, patent holder, inventor, not just the housewife. We drove home separately. Marcus arrived 10 minutes after me. The babysitter left. The girls were asleep upstairs. Marcus and I stood in the kitchen. The same kitchen where 8 years earlier he'd convinced me to give up my career. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. I looked at him, really looked at him. When should I have told you, Marcus? When you told me not to talk about science at the dinner because it's boring. When you introduced me as just my wife for the 1000th time. When you stopped seeing me as anything other than the person who takes care of your children. There are children, are they? Because I'm the one who quit my career. I'm the one who gave up everything. What did you give up? I work 60 hours a week to support this family. I worked alone late at night to remember who I was before I became invisible to you. He opened his mouth, closed it. How long have you known about Chloe? Since December. I read your messages. He flinched. Nora, how long, Marcus? How long have you been sleeping with her? 8 months. Did you invite her to the dinner to humiliate me? No. She asked to be at that table. I should have said no. I know that. You should have done a lot of things. You should have defended me when she called me just the housewife. You should have remembered that I have a PhD. You should have noticed that I was working on something. You should have asked. I didn't know. You didn't ask. There's a difference. I walked to the counter, picked up a folder I'd left there that morning, handed it to him. What's this? He asked. Divorce papers. I'm filing tomorrow. His face crumpled. Nora, please, we can fix this. I made a mistake. You made a lot of mistakes. And I don't want to fix it. I want to be done. The patent money is mine. Intellectual property I created independently. My lawyer already confirmed it. It's separate property under California law. How much? $2 million upfront, 12 to 15 million in projected royalties over the next 10 years. He stared at me. $14 million. Give or take. I had no idea, I know. That's the problem, Marcus. You had no idea who I was. You stopped looking. I walked upstairs, left him standing in the kitchen, went to bed in the guest room. The next morning, I called my attorney, filed for divorce. Marcus begged me to reconsider. For weeks, months, I didn't. The divorce was finalized in September 2024. I kept the patent. All of it. The $2 million already paid. All future royalties. My lawyer argued successfully that it was separate property. Intellectual work I'd done independently, filed under my maiden name, created outside the scope of our marriage assets. We split the house equity, his 401k, and other marital assets equally. I got full custody of Emma and Lily during the week. Marcus gets weekends. He pays child support. I don't need spousal support. I waived it. Marcus is still at TechMed. But the promotion he'd been expecting, the VP role, the corner office, all of it was quietly taken off the table. David Chen called him into his office a week after the awards dinner. I know because Marcus told me, trying to make me feel guilty. He said the optics were bad, Marcus said, that I'd accepted an award for innovation I didn't create. That with the divorce and the affair becoming public, it wasn't a good look for the company. He's right, I said. It's not. Chloe Raines resigned before she could be fired. HR launched an investigation into their relationship. Company policy prohibits relationships between employees at different levels. She was gone within 2 weeks. Marcus didn't defend her, didn't fight for her. He was too busy trying to save his own career. She texted him once after she left. I saw it because we were still sharing the Apple ID and he'd forgotten to turn off notifications. You ruined my life. He blocked her number. It's November now. 6 months since the awards dinner. 4 months since the divorce was finalized. I bought a townhouse in Palo Alto. 3 bedrooms. The girls each have their own room. I have an office. And I have a garage that I've converted into a proper lab. I started a consulting firm. Whitman Biomaterials Consulting. I'm working with 4 medical device companies now, developing new applications for polymer coatings. I have 2 more patents in development. 3 weeks ago, I was invited to speak at Stanford Women in STEM. 200 students, faculty, industry professionals. I stood on the stage in the same building where I'd defended my dissertation 17 years earlier. Looked out at the audience, young women in the front rows, notebooks open, waiting. I told them my story, all of it, the career I loved, the choice I made, the 8 years I spent being just a housewife, the late night work, the patent, the $14 million. I ended with this. I spent 8 years being dismissed, being called just a housewife. And in the hours when everyone thought I was doing nothing, I built something worth $14 million. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I wanted to prove anyone wrong, but because I needed to prove to myself that I was still who I thought I was. That taking a break from my career didn't mean I stopped being a scientist. That being a mother didn't erase being a doctor. I paused, looked at the faces watching me. If you take a break from your career for any reason, don't let anyone tell you that you're just anything. You're not just a mother. You're not just a wife. You're not just a caregiver. You're everything you've always been, plus the new role you've chosen. And if someone can't see that, if someone dismisses you, diminishes you, underestimates you, let them. And then prove them wrong so loudly they can't ignore it. The room stood up. 200 people. Applause that echoed off the walls. Afterward, a young woman approached me. Maybe 22, 23 years old. Engineering student. Dr. Whitman, she said. My mom gave up her career to raise me and my brother. She always said she wished she'd finished her degree. Can I send her your article? Article? I asked. The Forbes piece. It came out this morning. The housewife who became a millionaire inventor. I hadn't known it was publishing today. I pulled out my phone. There it was. Forbes, my photo, my story. Yes, I said to the student. Send it to her and tell her it's never too late. I drove home that night thinking about the last 8 years. The frustration, the invisibility, the late nights when I wondered if anyone would ever see me as more than Marcus Whitman's wife. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt. I'm just done. Done explaining myself. Done shrinking. Done being just anything. Marcus texted me last week. I'm sorry for all of it. I should have seen you. I didn't respond. There's nothing left to say. I'm Dr. Nora Whitman. I have a PhD from Stanford. I've published 14 papers. I hold a patent worth $14 million. I'm raising 2 daughters who will grow up knowing that their mother is a scientist, an inventor, and a person who refused to stay invisible. And if anyone ever calls me just a housewife again, I'll smile politely and say, actually, I'm the person who invented the technology you're standing on. But thank you for noticing. My name is Dr. Nora Whitman. I'm 42 years old. And I'm not just anything. If you've made it this far, I want to ask you something. If you had invented something worth millions while your spouse dismissed you as just a housewife, would you have told them immediately, or would you have waited for the perfect moment like I did? Tell me in the comments what you would have done. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or told you're just anything, this story is for you. Hit subscribe. Drop a comment if you believe the best revenge is becoming the person they said you couldn't be. I read every single one. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.